On this Wednesday night, Kazakhstan's deadly aviation disaster. The plane that plummeted from the sky. Why the pilots changed their route. Bracing for Donald Trump's tariff threat to become reality.
It's highly likely.
Why his old security advisor doesn't think he's bluffing. Providing a lifeline, the milestone for a Canadian mental health clinic helping the LGBTQ2+ community. Plus, bugs, drugs, and superbugs.
One of the things that we need to do is discover new chemicals.
How creepy crawlers could hold the prescription researchers are looking for.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. It is a tragic Christmas day in Kazakhstan where a devastating aviation disaster has claimed lives. An Azerbaijani passenger plane en route to Russia has crashed. The aircraft carrying more than 60 people met a fiery fate after attempting an emergency landing. 38 people were killed, but the rest who were on the flight managed to survive. Seán O'Shea walks us through the sequence of events and the circumstances that led pilots to change course.
An Azerbaijani Airlines flight in trouble after declaring an emergency in Kazakhstan in Central Asia. The passenger jet with 67 people aboard was en route from the capital city Baku to Grozny in Chechnya when something went wrong. Minutes beforehand, a passenger recorded cell phone video showing oxygen masks deployed as someone focused on possible damage under the plane's left wing. The plane crashed in a field about 3 kilometers from the Kazakh city of Aktau. First responders were on scene quickly, putting out flames and searching for survivors. Remarkably, official reports say half of those on the plane may have survived, with some even walking away. This video shows the Embraer 190 jet in a steep descent, then leveling off before hitting the ground and bursting into flames. The Azerbaijani president said it is too soon to say what caused the crash, but he said worsening weather forced the pilots to change their route. Russia's Civil Aviation Authority claimed pilots diverted to Aktau after a bird strike led to an emergency on board. At a meeting in St. Petersburg, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his condolences to the families of those who died and said he hoped the injured would all recover. Russia sent a plane load of medics to Kazakhstan. Its news agency said it was doing so to help the survivors. The Brazilian-made Embraer 190 is considered one of the safest commercial aircraft in the world. The company said it will assist in the crash investigation, one that will involve Kazakhstani, Azerbaijani, and Russian authorities. Seán O'Shea, Global News, Toronto.
It is another Christmas spent under the shadow of war for people in Ukraine as the country endured another wave of airstrikes from Russia today. Nearly 80 Russian missiles and more than 100 drones were launched, once again targeting energy infrastructure across Ukraine. Most were shot down, according to Ukraine's military, but not before doing enough damage to cause power outages across several regions. Despite the latest attack and warnings to take shelter, the threat didn't stop people in Kyiv from taking part in today's Christmas celebrations. In the Middle East, Israel has intercepted a missile from Yemen-based Houthi rebels. Sirens rang through Tel Aviv at around 4 a.m. Israel's military says it intercepted the missile before it entered the country's airspace. The Houthi rebels have frequently launched drones and missiles at Israel since the war on Gaza began 14 months ago. And in Gaza, at least 25 people have been killed by Israeli strikes since Tuesday. A residential building, school, and refugee camp were among the sites hit. Israel says it was targeting Hamas militants. It doesn't look like the bloodshed will end anytime soon either. Ceasefire talks have stalled as both Israel and Hamas trade blame for delays in a potential deal. A Quebec man has been identified as the victim of a boat explosion in Florida. Cameras captured this dramatic blast Monday night at a marina in Fort Lauderdale. 7 people were on board at the time. 3 of them have traumatic injuries. The body of 41-year-old Sebastien Gauthier was recovered from the water. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission says the vessel exploded after the engine started. Investigators are still trying to figure out a cause. The U.S. is just weeks away from President-elect Donald Trump's return to the White House, a move that could give Prime Minister Justin Trudeau more headaches if he survives his political turmoil in Ottawa. Trump is threatening to immediately slap Canada with harsh tariffs, despite most economic experts questioning their logic. Yet Trump's former national security advisor warns no matter how impractical his proposals seem, they shouldn't be underestimated. Mackenzie Gray reports.
That America First slogan, the biggest threat to the Canadian economy in 2025, with Donald Trump's threat of a 25% tariff on all Canadian goods, which in an interview with Global News, Trump's former national security advisor believes are coming no matter what.
I think it's highly likely, whether it will be part of a global scheme or whether he'll just do it because he doesn't like Justin Trudeau.
While the exact size and scope of the tariffs may change, John Bolton believes this is not a negotiating tactic from Trump. And the sour relationship between Trump and the Prime Minister plays a key role in not just the tariffs, but also his frequent online barbs.
He's quite obviously trying to humiliate Trudeau, and he enjoys that sort of thing. And I bet he's enjoying calling Governor Trudeau every time he types it out on his cell phone.
And Bolton would know.
I want to thank Ambassador John Bolton.
Joining the Trump White House in 2018, he served as the national security advisor until he was asked to resign a year later.
He made some very big mistakes.
Then Bolton became a frequent punching bag as Trump started publicly criticizing him.
And how about the idiot John Bolton? I mean, he comes in, all he wants to do is go to war with everybody.
It's a trade war that could cripple the Canadian economy, but also seriously impact American businesses.
Canada is not just a top source for U.S. imports, it's top source for U.S. exports. There are a lot of products that the United States really only sells to Canada.
Those economic realities unlikely to change Trump's stance, and arguments fentanyl and illegal immigration from Canada only account for a small fraction of the problem aren't persuading him either. Bolton believes any attempts to address the border won't solve the economic problems.
When somebody answers one objection that Trump makes, he finds another issue to complain about.
If Trump is true to his word and the full 25% tariff is implemented, plus Canada retaliates, Scotiabank estimates the Canadian economy would take a whopping 5.6% GDP decline, over 4 times as bad as the economic impact that COVID had. Neithu?
All right, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks, Mackenzie. A Canadian activist is speaking out after being named in the latest round of Hong Kong arrest warrants targeting overseas pro-democracy figures living in exile. According to the Canadian press, former journalist Victor Ho says he's proud of the warrant, even calling it the best Christmas present in a Facebook post written in Chinese. Ho also accuses China of foreign interference, claiming the government is attempting to arrest a Canadian citizen outside its borders. Ho is one of 2 Canadians named in the recent warrants. The other is Joseph Tay, founder of a Canada-based NGO. Both men are accused of subversion, secession, and colluding with a foreign government, and each faces a bounty of $180,000. While being home for the holidays is supposed to be a joyous occasion, it can be a nightmare for people living with their abusers. In fact, some organizations usually report more incidents of intimate partner violence during this time of year. Noorafet has the story of a survivor who managed to flee her abusers and turn her feelings of shame into resilience.
I remember getting battered during my pregnancy, getting my head smashed in a wall. I was knocked out, and then when I woke up, I knew I had a broken nose.
As a teen mother of 2 at the time, who was living with her abuser, every day was a masquerade for Andrea Johnson.
All I just remember was waking up in the hospital. They asked me, who did it? I'm like, I got jumped by a bunch of girls.
For 2 decades, Johnson says she endured financial, emotional, and physical abuse from multiple partners. Instead of enjoying festive cheer, Johnson would spend the holidays hiding what was happening at home from loved ones.
So in opposed to them coming to my house, I would go to theirs. You pretend. You play the game.
That game played by thousands just like Johnson.
During this time of the year, we have seen an increase in calls, an increase in violence,
and an increase in women seeking refuge at the Women's Habitat of Etobicoke shelter, which is currently full. Carla Nitu says daily crisis calls have doubled this December. Advocates say there are a number of factors why.
That could be an increase in financial pressures, societal pressures and events, an increase in problematic substance use, and also the idea that during the holidays, women and children are more likely to be home with their abusers.
During the first 15 days of December, Toronto police received 689 reports of intimate partner violence. That compares to 757 in all of December last year. The total number of incidents so far this year, more than 17,300, a number that advocates say is not surprising.
It was torturing.
For Johnson, recent years of healing prompted a shift in her mentality. You think you're not just a survivor, you're a
thriver.
Now the CEO of an organization supporting individuals experiencing gender-based violence, her message to women who were in her shoes:
get out. There's still light at the end of the tunnel, and fight for better.
Nourafat, Global News, Toronto.
Growing demand poses new obstacles. Coming up, a Montreal clinic dedicated to LGBTQ2+ mental health is marking a new milestone despite challenges. While progress has been made in securing rights for LGBTQ2+ people, many continue to face discrimination which can be detrimental to their mental health. Now, a Montreal psychiatry clinic dedicated to this community is celebrating a milestone. It's the only one of its kind in the province and has been credited with saving lives. Dan Spector explains how the facility was founded and why it's facing some challenges.
About 10 years ago, Luca Kuzmano was in pain and did not know where to turn.
I was a closeted bisexual. I had no idea what my gender was, and I was just in a lot of distress.
They found out about the McGill University Sexual Identity Center, MUSIC for short, and it gave them vital tools to deal with their struggles.
I wouldn't be here without them.
Kuzmano is just one of thousands of people MUSIC has helped since it opened its doors in 1999. The clinic is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year.
Remember when we were young and cute?
It was started by doctors Karine Igartua and Richard Montoro to fill a void they had both seen firsthand.
When I went to medical school, I was closeted. And I was afraid that if my classmates knew that I was gay, that nobody would refer patients to me and that I would not be able to make a living as a doctor.
It began with just the two of them working part-time along with a nurse. Now there are full-time and part-time staff, including this nurse practitioner and this researcher.
I'm happy. I feel home. I feel we're doing something important.
So we see about 600 patients a year, whereas 5 years ago it was more around 330. So we are growing.
At first, most of the clinic's patients were battling internalized homophobia, but as society has become more open to homosexuality, that's less common.
That same kind of discrimination still exists with the trans population, and so we do see a lot of people coming in with transphobia.
They offer individual therapy, group therapy, and can refer people to hormonal or surgical procedures if appropriate.
We want to give them the flexibility to express their gender in a way that works for them.
The results have been clear. Nicolas Robidoux' child is a patient at MUSIC. He calls the clinic a suicide prevention tool.
My child is now thinking of the future instead of going, do I really want to make it tomorrow?
This is why I get up in the morning. This is why we do what we do. This is why we've been doing it for 25 years.
But with high demand, unfortunately, comes high wait times.
Patients wait 4 to 6 months to see us for initial consultation. They wait another 3 to 12 months in order to get into our groups.
Igartua says MUSIC is seeing patients from all across the province, but is still only funded as a local entity. A national designation would mean a bigger budget. The Social Services Ministry says it is studying their request. Lives like Lucas could depend on Quebec's decision. Dan Spector, Global News, Montreal.
Putting the ant in antibiotic. Ahead, how these insects could be a critical weapon in battling superbugs. We're not just in the middle of the holiday season, it's also cold and flu season. And when people are sick, they might think antibiotics are the prescription to getting better. But those meds help with only bacterial infections, and their misuse or overuse can lead to antibiotic resistance. Canadian researchers believe they might find a solution in insects. Catherine Ward explains how bugs could be the key to fighting superbugs.
They're impressive.
For more than 20 years, Dr. Cameron Curry has marveled at how ants work together.
So you can see this worker starting to get a bit bigger here.
In this lab, Curry and his team monitor how these ants manage their food supply.
They actually cut leaves and they use that leaf material to grow a fungus for food. And they have their own diseases that attack their fungus gardens.
Curry says they've learned the insects harbor bacteria that secretes antimicrobial substances, ensuring their crops remain disease-free. That understanding could help unlock new ideas on how to help people and the growing concerns surrounding antimicrobial resistance.
One of the things that we need to do is discover new chemicals, new antibiotics to treat those infectious diseases that these bacteria and fungal pathogens of humans haven't had a chance to evolve resistance to. So we need new antibiotics.
The research has taken Curry around the world, including Panama and Costa Rica. Some results are showing promise, but are still a long way off for humans.
We have a number of antimicrobials that are very effective against bacterial infections, but our major and most promising antimicrobials are against fungi, so these are antifungals.
Bacteria on ants isn't the only thing being studied here for potential future drugs. Staff and students are also researching bacteria on other insects, including bees, wasps, and beetles.
Julian Rosati, a second-year biochem undergrad, has been working on bees. He says being a part of the research has been an eye-opening experience.
It's taught me that really we don't need to look in the craziest of places to find potential new antibiotics, because they might be right here, just in places you wouldn't expect to look.
The science we do we really love because it not only has the potential application of treating a very important issue of antimicrobial resistant diseases and contributing a knowledge base that hopefully helps to resolve this.
Catherine Ward, Global News.
Much appreciated. Next, our annual salute to our small but mighty news team. And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Neetu Garcha. We'll end tonight's newscast with a Christmas Day tradition, our tribute to the teams behind Global National, the West Block, and our network news coverage. But we also want to thank you, our viewers, for your trust and for making Global National Canada's most watched national newscast. Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Donna will be back with you tomorrow, and I'll see you again next year. Have a wonderful night.
Paul.
Exactly.
I do know Hoof. Yes, Musha Boom, I can groove to that any day of the week.
If you love Christmas just as much as